The Excel spreadsheet had 47 rows, each one a person who walked out of their life in Bradford and never came back. I've been obsessed with true crime since high school. Podcasts during my commute, documentaries every weekend, subreddits that dissected cold cases with the fervour of religious scholars. My girlfriend Sarah used to joke that I cared more about solving other people's problems than my own. She left 6 months ago. Took the cat. I didn't blame her. It's hard to compete with the dead. Bradford, Pennsylvania wasn't supposed to have mysteries. A population of 8,000. 3 churches, 2 bars, and 1 dying mall. The kind of place where everyone knows everyone's business, or thinks they do. But the numbers don't lie. 47 people gone in 20 years. That's 2.35 per year, nearly double the national average for a town our size. I wanted to find a case that would make me famous. Something that would make my life mean something for once. All it took was one breakthrough, and with my girlfriend now gone, I had all the time in the world to devote to it. Maybe I could make this a career. I started the spreadsheet on a Tuesday night in March. I pulled the data from newspaper archives, police bulletins, even Facebook memorial pages. Name, age, date of disappearance, last known location. Basic stuff. The pattern emerged by row 12. They all vanished on the 23rd. Not the same month, different years, but always the 23rd. January 23rd, 1998. Marcus Delroy, 34. Last seen leaving the Cornerstone Diner. August 23rd, 2001. Rebecca Zhang, 19. Walked out of her dorm at the community college. November 23rd, 2015. The Pritchard twins, both 27. Never showed up for Thanksgiving dinner. I leaned back in my desk chair, the aged leather cracked and peeling. My apartment suddenly felt smaller. Every little noise felt louder somehow. Even the tinnitus that I developed from years of heavy metal concerts began to ring more pronounced in my ears. I checked my math 3 times. Every single disappearance. The 23rd. Coincidence, right? Had to be. But I'd watched enough forensic files to know coincidences stacked high enough become evidence. I started a new column, Lunar Phase. I even downloaded historical astronomy data. Another pattern crystallized like frost on a window. 39 of the 47 vanished during a waning crescent moon. That thin sliver right before it goes completely dark. It seemed stupid, but it felt like I'd found a loose thread, and I wanted to pull at it, even if it led nowhere. My hands were shaking. I saved the file, backed it up to the cloud, and backed it up again to a USB drive. Then, I did something stupid. I posted it to our Unresolved Mysteries, a relatively obscure forum on Reddit, where people post about mysteries that haven't been solved. I must have spent days on there altogether for some reason. It seemed like the most obvious place to post it. The thread blew up overnight. 1,200 upvotes, 300 comments. Amateur sleuths from around the world dissecting my work, confirming the patterns and adding their own theories. The most common thought was it was a serial killer who had the moon cycles as his calling card. Others said it was a government experiment. Someone even claimed it could be an underground tunnel system. The usual internet buffet of paranoia. But one comment, posted at 3:12 a.m. from a deleted account, made my blood crystallize. "You shouldn't have looked," it said. "He doesn't like being noticed." I screenshotted it before the comment vanished from the thread entirely. like it had never existed. The timestamp remained, but the text showed as deleted by user. Except I'd watched it disappear in real time while refreshing the page. The next morning, I drove to the Bradford Public Library. Helen Marsh had worked there since before I was born. A wizened woman who wore her white hair in a bun so tight, it seemed to pull her eyebrows into a permanent expression of surprise. She knew the town's history better than the Historical Society. "Missing people," she repeated, her voice like dry leaves. "Why would you want to dig into that sadness?" "I'm writing an article," I lied, "about small-town crime statistics." Her eyes narrowed behind thick glasses. "The 23rd. My stomach dropped. "What?" "That's when they go, isn't it? Every 23rd. She glanced towards the back corner of the library, where the microfilm machines sat like ancient sentinels. "My grandmother used to talk about it. Said there was a man who collected." "Collected what?" "Debts." She wouldn't elaborate. She just shuffled away, leaving me standing between the new releases and young adult sections, with my pulse hammering in my ears. I spent 6 hours in the microfilm room. The Bradford Gazette, 1947 to present. Spooled past in a blur of yellowed headlines and grainy photographs. The disappearances stretched back further than I'd thought. The patterns still held. October 23rd, 1952, Thomas Brennan. April 23rd, 1967, Linda Kowalski. December 23rd, 1973, an entire family named Hewitt. The oldest reference I found was from July 23rd, 1931. A farmer named Virgil Hess walked into his cornfield during a waning crescent moon and never came back out. The article was brief, buried on page 6. But there was a detail that snagged my attention like a thorn. Neighbours reported seeing a tall figure standing at the edge of Hess's property the night before his disappearance. The figure remained motionless for several hours, facing the house. When approached, it retreated into the tree line with an unnatural speed, so it said. I photographed the screen with my phone. My hands left sweat prints on the plastic edges of the machine. As I drove home, the sun setting behind Bradford's downtown, I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. Not by a person, by something patient and vast, like the town itself had grown eyes. My apartment felt wrong when I got back. Nothing moved, nothing was out of place. But the air tasted metallic, the way it does before a thunderstorm. And my skin prickled with that primordial warning system we've inherited from prey animals. My laptop sat where I'd left it, open to the same spreadsheet. But to my shock, a new row had been added. Michael Foster, 29, last known location, 447 Oak Street, apartment 2B. That was my name and my address. The date field was blank. I slammed the laptop shut, with my chair screeching backward into the wall behind me. I grabbed my phone and started to dial 911, but after a second to process, I stopped. What on earth would I say? There was no sign of forced entry and nothing untoward. I couldn't just say a mysterious line's been added to my Excel spreadsheet. They'd think I was crazy. My phone vibrated in my pocket. I tended to keep it on silent, just an old habit. As I unlocked it, a text notification glowed. It was from an unknown number. It said, "The 23rd is in 6 days." I didn't sleep. I made coffee at midnight, then 2 a.m, and then 4. I couldn't help myself from pacing the apartment, checking locks and checking windows. Every shadow seemed too dark, too deep somehow. The street light outside my window had burned out. When had that happened? By dawn, I'd made a decision. I was going to find where they went. The Bradford police records were public, sort of. It took 3 days of bureaucratic runaround and a $50 processing fee to get photocopies of the incident reports. Most were useless. Family statements, search party logs, and dead-end leads. But, buried in Marcus Delroy's file, was a witness statement I'd missed in the newspaper articles. A truck driver passing through town saw Marcus standing on the shoulder of Route 17 around 11 p.m. An hour after he'd left the diner. The driver slowed down, thinking Marcus needed help. But Marcus wasn't alone. The subject appeared to be speaking with an extremely tall individual, approximately 7 to 8 feet in height. But due to distance and poor visibility, the witness couldn't provide a detailed description. They stated the tall individual didn't move right, and that he felt compelled to keep driving, despite initial intention to offer assistance. The driver reported feeling overwhelming dread for several miles afterward. I found similar accounts in 4 other files. Different witnesses and different years, but the same impossible height. The same wrongness. This felt too important to be a mere coincidence. On March 22nd, the day before, I loaded my car with everything I thought might help. Everything from flashlights and batteries to a hunting knife I'd inherited from my dad. And of course my phone charger and a portable battery. I also included the USB drive with all my research. I didn't want that to go missing, as someone clearly had no trouble getting into my apartment. I felt ridiculous. Like a kid preparing for an adventure that only existed in his head. But row 48 was still there every time I opened the file. My name, waiting for a date. The moon that night was a fingernail clipping in a black velvet sky. I drove to every last known location I'd catalogued. The diner where Marcus was last seen, now a vape shop. The community college dorm, converted to offices. The Pritchard twins' house, foreclosed with its windows dark. No connection between the places. No geographic pattern that I could see. It was 10:47 p.m. when I found myself on Route 17, parked on the same shoulder where Marcus Delroy had been seen. The forest felt like it was surrounding me. The pine trees felt like prison bars. My headlights carved a narrow tunnel through the darkness, revealing nothing but empty asphalt and the white line disappearing around a curve. I sat there with the engine running and the heat blasting, trying to convince myself to leave. I was just talking myself around to chalking this all up to my imagination, going home and putting on a few episodes of Unsolved Mysteries, when I saw something. Movement at the tree line. As I squinted my eyes, I could make out more of it. It was impossibly tall. I'd never seen anyone's body shaped like that. It had a silhouette that existed as an absence of light, rather than the presence of form. It stood between 2 pines, and even from 50 yards away, I could feel its attention lock onto me like a searchlight. Every instinct in my head screamed to drive. Floor it. Get out. Save yourself while you still can. I've seen enough horror movies to know what happens. But I couldn't help myself. I turned the engine off instead. And all at once, the silence rushed in to fill the absence of engine noise. I still had my eyes locked onto this thing the whole time. I opened the door. The cold bit through my jacket immediately. My breath came out in clouds. March in Pennsylvania isn't supposed to be this cold. We were past the worst of winter. But the temperature felt like it was dropping by the second, with my exposed skin going numb. The figure didn't move. and it didn't approach. It waited. I took a step towards it, with the gravel crunching under my boots. Then another. My phone was in my pocket, but I didn't dare pull it out. And I didn't dare look away either. Whatever this was, it operated on predator rules. Show any fear, and it would pounce. 15 yards. 10. This close, I could see it wasn't wearing any clothes. Its body was clothed in darkness itself. A walking void, shaped roughly like a man, but stretched. Wrong in proportions I couldn't process. Its limbs bent too many times. Its head tilted at an angle that would snap a human neck. And then it smiled. I saw teeth like splinters. Dozens of them, arranged in concentric circles. A lamprey mouth on a body from nightmares. "You've been looking for me," it said. The voice came from everywhere and nowhere. From inside my skull. It didn't sound male or female. It sounded like rocks grinding together, like ice cracking on a frozen lake. "What are you?" I whispered. "A collector." "Of what?" "The ones who don't matter." Its head tilted further, completely upside down now. "The ones no one fights for. The forgotten. The alone. I take them when the moon's dying and the day is right. When the barrier is at its thinnest." "Where do you take them?" "Where all debts are paid." It took a step closer. The ground crunched under its foot. Not gravel, but frost forming instantly wherever it touched. The temperature plummeted further. My eyelashes were freezing. "You made yourself matter," it continued. "You made noise. You drew attention. Now, the equation is unbalanced." "So what? You going to take me too?" "I already did. The moment you saw me." The smile widened, splitting its head nearly in half. "Everyone who sees is already mine." My legs were going numb. Not from cold, from terror so pure it shut down my rational thought. But somewhere deep in my lizard brain, a spark of defiance ignited. "The people you took, where are they?" "Everywhere. Nowhere. Between." "That's not an answer." "It's the only answer." It crouched down, bringing that impossible face level with mine. I could smell it now. Earth and rot and something else. Something that predated language. "Did you think you'd find them? Rescue them? You're not a hero. You're barely a person. Your girlfriend left because you're hollow. Your family stopped calling because you have nothing to say. You fill the void with other people's tragedies because you have none of your own worth examining." Every word was a scalpel, cutting with surgical precision. True enough to hurt. I wanted to deny it, but my mouth wouldn't work. "I give purpose to the purposeless," it whispered. "I make meaning from meaningless lives. You should be grateful. I'm not going anywhere with you." "You already are." I looked down. My feet were sinking into the floor. No, through it. The ground was dissolving, or I was. or the membrane between here and somewhere else was thinning like tissue paper. I tried to pull free, but my legs wouldn't respond. The cold was inside me now, spreading through my veins like injection dye before an X-ray. Others have resisted, the collector said, standing to its full height. It makes no difference. The 23rd always comes. The moon always wanes. And I always collect. I was sinking faster, up to my knees now. The world was going grey at the edges, its colour draining away. I could see shapes in the darkness below, figures standing motionless in an infinite space, all facing the same direction, waiting for something that would never arrive. I could count 47 shapes at least, maybe more. All the missing, all the forgotten. My phone was still in my pocket. With the last of my fading strength, I pulled it out. My fingers were clubs of frozen meat, but I managed to unlock it and open the camera. It made no sense, but I had to try something. The collector's smile vanished. No. I took a picture. The flash exploded in searing white light in the absolute darkness. The collector recoiled, that impossible form flickering, becoming less solid. I took another, and another. Each flash was a heartbeat, pushing back against the void. For some reason, the bright light hurt it. I continued. The collector was screaming, a sound like metal tearing, like every car crash and broken bone compressed into one note. It reached for me with those two long arms, but the arms were becoming more translucent by the second. Then, all of a sudden, with a gust of wind that felt like a tornado, the thing was gone, leaving a trail of destruction through the pine trees in its wake. I dropped my phone to the ground with a clatter and bent down with my hands on my knees, gulping in oxygen. I'd survived, somehow. I kept my eyes fixed upon the newly formed gap in the trees, but no figure emerged. It was gone. With my legs shaking from the adrenaline, I stumbled back to my car and sat in the driver's seat for a moment. That must have been what all those people saw before they disappeared. God knows what had happened to them after that, but I didn't want to become the next. I turned the engine back on and sped away, with my tyres screeching through the night. Funnily enough, I lost all interest in unsolved mysteries after that. But I felt as though I'd avenged those poor souls who'd met their end at the hands of that thing, whatever it was. I could take that to my grave. I continued to monitor the news feeds, though, for months after that, looking for any further missing people. There were one or two, but no one on the 23rd. That was 5 years ago now. I found a new partner, but I've never told her about what happened to me all those years ago. She'd never believed me, for a start. But as I was making us breakfast this morning, as I normally do, with the morning news on as background noise, something broke through my autopilot. A young girl had been reported missing. She'd been camping with friends last night and completely disappeared in the morning, nowhere to be found. The police were treating it as suspicious and were appealing for witnesses. It was very close to where I'd had that encounter years ago. As my eyes widened, I glanced at the calendar on my wall. Today was May 24th.